In 1945, your great-grandmother could turn a pig's foot into a feast for 12. She could make greens taste like Sunday morning and stretch a nickel into a week of suppers. Today, most of those recipes exist only in memory. Number 17 on this list was so essential to survival during the Great Migration that whole communities depended on it. Number 3 uses a technique that food scientists now say creates flavor compounds no restaurant can replicate. These 25 recipes were not lost by accident. Convenience foods, fast food chains, and supermarket aisles were designed to make us forget them. Because if you knew what your grandmother knew, you would never buy another jar of pre-made gravy or a box of instant anything. Soul food did not come from restaurants. It came from necessity, ingenuity, and love measured out in cast iron skillets. Before we start, hit that subscribe button because what you are about to learn is more than recipes. It is heritage. Let us count down the 25 smartest cooking secrets that vanished from Black American kitchens. Number 25, cracklin' bread. Before cornbread came from a box, your grandmother rendered her own lard and saved the crispy bits of pork skin that floated to the top. Those cracklings went straight into the cornmeal batter, baked in a cast iron skillet, greased with more of that same rendered fat. In the 1940s, a pound of fatback cost around 15 cents and nothing was wasted. The fat became lard for cooking. The cracklings became flavor. The skillet, seasoned over decades, became a family heirloom. Children fought over the corner pieces, where the crust turned almost black and the cracklings crisped hardest against the iron. Modern cornbread mixes promise convenience but deliver blandness. They cannot replicate what pork fat and patience created. We traded flavor for speed when Jiffy Mix showed up in the 1950s and forgot what real bread tasted like. Number 24, pot liquor. When your grandmother finished cooking a pot of collard greens, she did not pour that dark green liquid down the drain. That pot liquor, rich with vitamins, minerals, and the smoky essence of ham hock, was liquid gold. She would pour it into bowls and serve it with cornbread for dipping, or save it as a base for soups and gravies. During the Depression, when meat was scarce, pot liquor kept families nourished. Doctors in the rural South actually prescribed it for anemia and weakness. By 1935, pot liquor had become so culturally significant that newspapers ran debates about the proper way to eat it. Children learned early that the greens were good, but the pot liquor was medicine and meal combined. Today, most people throw away this nutritional powerhouse without a second thought. The tradition of saving every drop vanished when canned vegetables took over American kitchens. Number 23, salmon croquettes. Every Friday in Black households across America, the sound of canned salmon being drained and flaked signaled something special. Your grandmother mixed that salmon with eggs, onions, and crushed saltine crackers, shaped patties, and fried them golden in cast iron. By 1952, canned salmon cost around 30 cents, making it an affordable protein that could stretch to feed a family of 6. Served with grits and eggs for breakfast, or with rice and gravy for dinner, salmon croquettes bridged the gap between scarcity and satisfaction. The recipe traveled north during the Great Migration. Yet somewhere between frozen fish sticks and fast food drive-thrus, the Friday croquette tradition faded. The skill of stretching one can into a feast passed quietly out of everyday practice. Number 22, chitterlings. No dish divided generations quite like chitterlings. Your grandmother spent hours, sometimes an entire day, cleaning pig intestines until they were spotless, then simmered them with onions, vinegar, vimbar, and red pepper flakes until tender. The smell was unmistakable. It announced itself through the whole neighborhood. In the 1940s, chitterlings cost almost nothing because white butchers considered them waste. Black families transformed that so-called waste into a delicacy that appeared at every holiday table. A 10-pound bucket could feed 20 people. Oral histories recall the cleaning ritual, the careful scraping, the multiple rinses in cold water. Elders tested the young, watching to see who had the patience and stomach to learn. Pre-cleaned chitterlings exist in freezer sections today, but they lack the care and attention that made grandmother's version legendary. Before there were griddles, there were hoes. Field workers cooked cornmeal batter on the flat metal blades of their farming tools held over open fires during breaks from labor. Your grandmother kept the tradition alive, mixing cornmeal with water and a pinch of salt, then frying thin cakes in bacon grease until the edges laced golden and crisp. By the early 1900s, hoe cakes had moved to farmhouse kitchens, served hot with butter and molasses. A cup of cornmeal cost pennies and could produce a dozen cakes. The simplicity was the point. 3 ingredients, 1 hot pan, and the memory of ancestors who survived on exactly this. Pancake mixes and toaster waffles made hoe cakes seem old-fashioned, but those modern substitutes cannot carry the weight of history that a proper hoe cake holds. The neck bones your grandmother bought for 30 cents a pound were considered scraps by most butchers. She saw something else entirely. Braised low and slow with onions, garlic, and a splash of vinegar, those bones released collagen and marrow that transformed plain rice into something almost luxurious. By 1958, neck bones were standard fare in black kitchens from Mississippi to Chicago. The rice was never an afterthought. It was mounded on plates to catch every drop of that rich gelatinous gravy. Children learned to work around the bones, sucking the meat clean. When boneless, skinless convenience took over American meat counters, neck bones became hard to find. The art of slow braising retreated to grandmothers who refused to forget. First pattern break, the cast iron commandment. Your grandmother never washed her cast iron skillet with soap. That black, glossy surface, built up over years of bacon grease and cornbread and fried chicken, was called seasoning, and it was sacred. She wiped the skillet clean while it was still warm. She rubbed it with a thin layer of lard and stored it on the stovetop. Food scientists now confirm what she knew instinctively. That polymerized fat layer creates a natural non-stick surface that improves with age and adds flavor to everything cooked in it. A well-seasoned skillet from 1940 can outperform any modern non-stick pan. Companies spent millions marketing Teflon and ceramic coatings, but they could never replicate what decades of daily use created. In the low country of South Carolina and Georgia, red rice marked a proper meal. Your grandmother fried bacon until crisp, then sautéed onions and bell peppers in the rendered fat before adding rice and tomatoes, cooking everything together until each grain turned brick red. The recipe traveled from West Africa through the Caribbean, carrying memories of jollof rice. By 1945, red rice appeared at fish fries and Sunday dinners throughout the Gullah Geechee corridor. The technique required attention. Too much liquid and the rice turned mushy. Too little and it burned. That knowledge, passed through demonstration rather than written recipe, faded when instant rice promised shortcuts. Number 18, smothered pork chops. When your grandmother smothered pork chops, she created gravy that could make even the toughest cut surrender. She dredged thin-cut chops in seasoned flour, browned them hard in a hot skillet, then buried them under onions and a lid, added water, and let everything simmer until the meat fell apart at the suggestion of a fork. By the 1950s, Pork chops cost around 40 cents a pound, requiring skill to avoid toughness. The smothering technique solved everything. Low heat and time broke down connective tissue, while the onions melted into gravy that clung to rice or soaked into biscuits. Modern recipes call for cream of mushroom soup from a can. They cannot approach the depth that comes from flour-browned meat and onions cooked past recognition. On New Year's Day, your grandmother served Hoppin' John because black-eyed peas meant luck and rice meant prosperity, and no family could afford to start the year without both. She soaked the peas overnight, then simmered them with ham hock or bacon until tender, mixing them with rice and seasoning with whatever the kitchen had. The dish traveled from West Africa to the Carolina coast, becoming so essential that plantation records from the 1700s mention it by name. By 1950, Hoppin' John was non-negotiable on January 1st, served with collard greens for wealth and cornbread for gold. Children counted their peas, told that each one meant a day of good fortune. When dried peas became hard to find and canned versions took over, the ritual of soaking and slow cooking gave way to convenience that could never carry the same weight. Number 16, fried catfish. Your grandmother soaked catfish fillets in buttermilk, sometimes overnight, to draw out any muddy taste and to tenderize the flesh. She dredged them in seasoned cornmeal, never flour, and fried them in oil hot enough to sizzle on contact. The result was fish with a crust that shattered and flesh that steamed and flaked. In the Mississippi Delta, catfish was the affordable protein that sustained families when meat was scarce. By 1955, it cost around 20 cents a pound. Friday fish fries brought neighborhoods together. The buttermilk soak was the secret nobody wrote down. Frozen fish sticks promised convenience but delivered cardboard. Number 15, sweet potato pie. Before pumpkin pie dominated Thanksgiving, your grandmother baked sweet potato pie with a richness that no canned filling could match. She roasted sweet potatoes until they caramelized and softened, then mashed them with butter, sugar, eggs, and spices. She poured the filling into a homemade crust and baked it until just set. By the 1940s, sweet potato pie was the dessert of Black America, appearing at every holiday gathering. The potatoes cost almost nothing, often grown in backyard gardens. Children snuck slivers before dinner, often caught with orange on their fingers. Canned sweet potato filling promises convenience, but it delivers nothing of what proper roasting creates. Number 14, oxtail stew. The oxtails your grandmother bought were bony, tough, and cheap, exactly what she needed to create a stew that lasted for days. She browned them hard in a hot pot, then braised them with tomatoes, onions, and butter beans until the meat surrendered and the gravy turned thick and glossy with collagen. By the early 1960s, oxtails cost around 40 cents a pound, dismissed by most as scraps. Black families knew better. The stew improved overnight, each reheating, concentrating the flavors. Today, oxtails have become trendy and expensive, priced beyond the families who first celebrated them. The irony is sharp. What was once survival food is now a luxury. Second pattern break, the science of seasoning meat. Your grandmother did not just season meat, she seasoned it overnight. Chicken for Sunday dinner got rubbed with salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and paprika the night before, covered and left in the icebox. Food scientists now explain why this worked so well. Salt draws moisture to the surface, which then gets reabsorbed along with the seasonings, flavoring the meat all the way through. Modern cooking shows treat this as a revelation. Your grandmother learned it from her mother, who learned it from hers. No scientific explanation was needed. When rotisserie chickens filled supermarket cases, the practice of advanced seasoning seemed unnecessary. But nothing from a deli counter ever matched the depth that came from grandmother's patience. A single smoked ham hock could flavor a pot of beans large enough to feed a family for 3 days. Your grandmother soaked navy beans overnight, then simmered them with that ham hock until the meat fell off the bone and the beans turned creamy with broken-down starch. By 1948, dried beans cost around 10 cents a pound, and a ham hock perhaps 20 cents. The ham hock gave up its smoky, salty essence slowly, requiring hours of patient simmering. Served over rice or with cornbread, ham hocks and beans was poverty made palatable, necessity transformed into tradition. Canned beans and liquid smoke promise similar results in minutes. They lie. The depth that comes from 6 hours of slow cooking cannot be replicated. Number 12. Fried green tomatoes. Before tomatoes ripened red on the vine, your grandmother picked them green and firm, sliced them thick, and fried them in cornmeal until golden. The tart crunch of green tomato against a crispy coating was the taste of summer, a way to use fruit before it fully matured. By the 1930s, fried green tomatoes appeared across the South, a Depression-era solution that became a beloved tradition. Your grandmother soaked the slices in buttermilk, dredged them in seasoned cornmeal, and fried them in batches. Children ate them hot from the pan. Supermarkets sell only red tomatoes now, and the knowledge of what to do with green ones belongs increasingly to the past. Number 11. Giblet gravy. When your grandmother roasted a chicken or turkey, she saved the neck, heart, liver, and gizzard. She simmered those giblets in seasoned water until tender, chopped them fine, then added them to pan drippings thickened with flour. She made a gravy that no flour and drippings alone could match. By 1955, giblets were included free with every whole bird, a bonus that most cooks today throw away. Your grandmother saw them as gravy's foundation. Children learned to identify each piece. When boneless breasts became the norm and whole birds became special occasions, giblet gravy lost its place in the everyday. Your grandmother's peach cobbler bore no resemblance to the cakey versions restaurants serve. She sliced fresh peaches into a buttered dish, made a simple batter of flour, sugar, milk, and butter, and poured it over the fruit. As it baked, the batter rose around the peaches, creating a crisp top and a custardy bottom swimming in sweet peach juice. By the 1940s, peaches cost 5 cents a pound in summer, cheap enough to bake cobblers twice a week. Children gathered at the oven door, counting minutes. Canned peaches and boxed mixes promise cobbler quickly. They deliver something that shares a name but little else. When wild blackberries ripened along fence rows, your grandmother sent children out with buckets and a warning about thorns. Those berries became dumplings, simmered in sweetened water until the juice ran purple, then topped with spoonfuls of biscuit dough that steamed into fluffy clouds. The berries cost nothing but left scratched arms and stained fingers as proof of the harvest. Children ate their weight in berries before the bucket was full. Your grandmother covered the pot and waited while steam worked its magic. When foraging became unfashionable and supermarket berries became expensive, this free dessert faded from practice. Third pattern break, the church supper economy. Your grandmother did not cook alone. She cooked within a network of church women who traded recipes, shared labor, and built a food economy that sustained entire communities. When a family faced hardship, church mothers appeared with covered dishes. This was not charity. It was mutual aid, rooted in the knowledge that survival required cooperation. The church kitchen was a classroom where young women learned techniques by watching and doing. The modern isolation of cooking would have seemed strange to women who understood that food was community made edible. Your grandmother transformed simple sweet potatoes into candied yams so rich they bordered on dessert. She sliced them thick, layered them with butter, brown sugar, cinnamon, and nutmeg, then baked until the syrup bubbled and edges caramelized almost to burning. By 1950, sweet potatoes cost 3 cents a pound, the cheapest vegetable but capable of becoming the most anticipated Thanksgiving dish. Some grandmothers added marshmallows on top. Children saved candied yams for last, the sweetest reward. Canned yams in syrup promise convenience but deliver mushiness, incapable of the crisp edges that proper baking creates. Number 7. Fried chicken. Your grandmother's fried chicken needed no secret recipe. It needed technique perfected over 50 years of Sunday dinners. She seasoned the bird overnight, soaked pieces in buttermilk, dredged in seasoned flour, and fried in cast iron with enough oil to come halfway up the meat. The temperature had to be exact. By 1945, a whole chicken cost around 50 cents. Children fought over drumsticks and wings. The coating shattered at first bite, revealing juicy meat that had absorbed buttermilk tang and overnight seasoning. Fast food chains built empires on the promise of replicating this taste. They could not. The soul came from the hands that shaped it. Your grandmother washed collard greens 3 times, sometimes 4, because grit hiding in the leaves would ruin everything. She stripped the leaves from tough stems, rolled them into bundles, and sliced them into ribbons before simmering for hours with smoked ham hock. By the 1950s, collards cost 10 cents a bunch, requiring labor that made them something earned. The pot liquor at the bottom was saved, sacred as the greens themselves. Bagged, pre-washed greens promise to save time. They cannot save the flavor that comes from proper washing, slow cooking, and the ham hock that gave its soul to the pot. Your grandmother's macaroni and cheese was not boxed stuff and bore no resemblance to restaurant versions. She boiled elbow macaroni, layered it with slices of sharp cheddar and American cheese, dotted with butter, poured over custard made from eggs beaten with evaporated milk, and baked until the top formed a brown, bubbling crust. This was not a side dish. It was a main course. Children scraped for the crusty edges where cheese had caramelized. The EGs were the secret that modern recipes ignore, creating custard that set pasta into sliceable blocks. Velveeta conquered kitchens by promising convenience. It delivered mediocrity. Your grandmother built banana pudding in layers. She cooked vanilla custard from scratch, stirring constantly until it coated a spoon. She lined a dish with vanilla wafers, topped with sliced bananas, poured over custard, and repeated. The wafers softened as they absorbed custard, becoming cake-like. By 1952, ingredients cost under $1. The pudding improved overnight, flavors melding as it chilled. Children dove for layers where wafer met banana, met custard. Instant pudding and Cool Whip promise banana pudding in minutes. They deliver something that shares a name, but none of the soul. Number 3. Red beans and rice. On Monday, your grandmother put a pot of red beans on the stove because Monday was wash day and beans could simmer unattended while she worked. She soaked the beans overnight, then cooked them low and slow with a ham bone, andouille sausage, and the Trinity until the liquid turned creamy and the beans began to break down. Here is what food scientists now understand. The long cooking time allows starches to gelatinize and proteins to break down, creating a texture impossible to achieve through shortcuts. The Maillard reaction develops flavor compounds that build over hours. Your grandmother knew none of this science. She knew only that all-day cooking made the beans taste right. That weekly rhythm gave way to modern schedules that left no room for all-day cooking. Canned red beans cannot replicate what time creates. Number 2. Chitlin Circuit Chicken. When black musicians toured the segregated South, playing venues on what became known as the Chitlin Circuit, certain restaurants became legendary for fried chicken. The secret was brining in salt water and spices, sometimes for 2 days before frying. The brine penetrated deep, seasoning meat to the bone and keeping it impossibly juicy. By 1955, touring musicians rated restaurants by their chicken, spreading reputations through word of mouth. Your grandmother learned the technique from someone who perhaps cooked for Duke Ellington or Bessie Smith. That chain of knowledge, passed through hands rather than written down, grew thinner with each generation. Number 1. Sunday dinner. At the top of this list sits not a single recipe, but an institution. Sunday dinner was your grandmother's masterpiece, a meal that brought family together and demonstrated love through labor. It began Saturday night with seasoning the chicken and soaking the beans. By early afternoon, the table groaned with fried chicken, collard greens, macaroni and cheese, candied yams, cornbread, and whatever else the season allowed. Children gathered, hungry and eager. Adults caught up on the week's news. The meal lasted hours. Dessert came later, sweet potato pie or banana pudding. Sunday dinner was not about efficiency. It was about presence, about labor transformed into love. The decline of Sunday dinner marks loss beyond recipes. It marks loss of time, given freely to family, of cooking as devotion rather than chore. The challenge. Pick one recipe from this list. Make it the way your grandmother made it, without shortcuts. Sit down and eat it at a table, not in front of a screen. Call someone who remembers and ask them how they made it. Write it down before it is lost. These recipes survived slavery. They survived the Great Migration. They survived Jim Crow and poverty and everything that tried to break the communities that created them. They cannot survive forgetting. Your grandmother knew things that cannot be bought in stores. She knew that food was memory made edible, that recipes were history you could taste. Share which recipe you are going to try in the comments. Tell me about your grandmother's kitchen, what it smelled like, what she made that no one makes anymore. Because these 25 dishes are not just food, they are inheritance, and inheritance only has value if someone claims it. Your grandmother knew. Now you know too.